let me stop crapping on myself because you talking to a chick who had a 3.92 from Howard University.
I hear that.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Okay, HU. All right, HU, we hear you. This ain't even the space for it. Like, bro, we gotta, if there's no other day to brag about who we are, what we are, and what we've accomplished today, it's right here. So
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
I want to
Yes,
hear all,
sir.
I want to hear all of it.
All
Yes,
right.
sir.
So we are live. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Black Millennial Roundtable discussion. I'm so happy that you guys are here. I'm about to drop this link. We encourage each and every one of you to share this, post this, comment, engage with us, because at the end of the forum, we will take questions and comments from our audience. We have also given our speakers their guidelines, and I'm going to give them to you too. So during this roundtable discussion, we're going to talk about so many things. I mean, so many things, from the economy to politics to millennial lifestyle, LGBTQ+, I mean, money, reparations, you name it, we're talking about it. And if you have a thought, comment, concern, post it for us. We will reach back to you. Each speaker has 2 minutes to make their point. There's going to be no profanity because we have some children that want to watch this and want to hear from us. Also, we will not go past 7 minutes, 8 minutes tops on each topic. I will moderate, as well as Mr. Darnell Johnson. He will be moderating. And with that said, it's all love, all family. We're all here. We're not monolithic, but we do love each other, right? We love each other because we're blackity black, black, black. So I'm excited. I'm gonna take a little bit and give you guys an opportunity to share this so you don't have to do two things at once. And hey, Marcello, thank you for joining us. Carmen is here. Carmen is my co-founder. And I'm happy that she's
here. I'm sorry, I've got a little bit of a crazy child in the background, so I've had it muted, but Elbi and I have been super excited about this. So we're very happy to sort of showcase that we are not a monolithic people, so.
I am happy. So, okay, I'm gonna let each and every one of you guys flex for us. Flex for the gram, flex for Facebook. Tell us who you are, where you are, what you do, and something else, you know? Tell us a little bit about yourself. Let's start with Dwayne Smith.
Hey, everybody. My name is Dwayne Smith. Professionally, I'm a cybersecurity policy analyst. I help make cybersecurity policy. I'm also an academic PhD student in computational social science. What my area of research is public policy and its effect on economically disadvantaged and Black communities in the United States. And that's a little bit about me. Other than that, you know, I'm a father, have 2 young boys, I'm a pilot, I train jujitsu, kind of do it all, or I try to anyway. Life's too short to not.
Awesome. See, I told you, we got people out here with long resumes. All right, next, can we have Asli? Can you go ahead and flex for us a little bit?
Yes, I can. Happy to. Hi, everyone. I'm Asli Shebe. I am originally from Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, in Eastern Africa. I moved to the US when I was little. I've been living back and forth between the US and Tanzania, graduated from SCAD with a BFA in writing. I've been working as a writer, both like hired or freelance, for about, 5 years now, maybe longer. I graduated from the International Baccalaureate program, which is like a pretty good program for international schools. I have been doing yoga in Savannah. I've been doing community outreach work in Savannah. I've worked for Deep Center and volunteered with them for a long time. So really just getting my hands dirty. I speak Kiswahili, which is the native tongue for Tanzania, French, Ompu, and I speak English obviously as well. And yeah, I've been living in Savannah for 6 years. I'm still here. I love it here. I love the community, and I'm excited for the work we're going to do.
See? All right, Robert, can you go ahead and flex for us?
Yeah, what's good, fam? What's going on, guys? My name is Robert Gould, and just want to thank you, first of all, Culturist Union, for having this platform. It's so needed right now. I'm so honored to be with y'all tonight. I'm an author, an artist, a motivational speaker, and a creative entrepreneur. On the creative side, I've been so fortunate to study at Berklee College of Music and performed with some incredible people, from Patti LaBelle to Ryan Seacrest to Danny Glover, some incredible people. And then on the opposite side, on the business end, I've been really fortunate to have a full service marketing and media firm, and we operate out of Atlanta and as well as Savannah. And so we've been in the Savannah market for about 2.5 years. I've loved it working with the people here, just understanding the vibe, the culture is totally different than any other place in the world. And so I'm just excited about doing what I get to do on a grassroots level, whether it's speaking, whether it's being at boardroom tables, making sure that voices are heard and empowering folks every day. So excited to be with y'all tonight.
Oh, yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, James, can you flex for us a little bit?
Hey, how you doing, guys?
Hey.
Queens and kings. Let me first address y'all as such, because that's exactly what we are. We try to get back to that point where we have love for each other and we address each other with our proper connotations. I'm James Bennet, aka known as JB or JB Flip Savannah. I'm originally from Kingston, Jamaica, West Indies, and I came here in 2000. I've been in the United States for 20 years. I served in the U.S. Army. I'm a disabled veteran, served overseas also. So I've seen a lot of different things. I've been a lot of places, and started my real estate career here in Savannah, Georgia, where I've been kind of lauded as the guy that buys back the block. I buy a lot of property every year. I own a lot of property. And here I teach real estate classes, and I'm a consult. I do consultations. I do mentorship to individuals that want to get in the real estate arena. I actually really give you the nuts and bolts, and without the BS. I'm real straightforward, honest as you can get. I stopped lying about 10 years ago, so I don't lie no more. I just keep it real. But I want to give people actually what they deserve, an opportunity to grow and grow wealth. I've amassed millions of dollars of real estate holdings, and I like to change stuff. You know, I like to go in and be a difference, and then be a difference and bring others forward. So my goal is actually to show other people that we can do it, and they did it. We can do it by learn from each other. That's it.
Thank you, sir,
Thank you,
for sharing.
James. Thank you. Let me hold some. I'm not playing, but
you gotta come to Savannah.
I'm in Savannah. Shoot.
Oh. Awesome.
All right, and we have Representative Gordon on with us. Right now, we're just flexing. We're telling people a little bit about yourself and what you do and how you do it. So I'm gonna let you go ahead and flex. Tell the people about yourself.
Oh man, I feel like I'm coming on with a disadvantage. I hadn't heard what everybody else said.
That's all right. You was running on CP time.
I was running on CP time. Yeah, I was running on HBCU time. I was doing a.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
I was running on Howard time.
He tried already.
Well, good evening, everybody. Again, I'm sorry that I was running late. I had another Juneteenth Zoom event that actually started at the same hour, but equally is honored to be a part of this conversation. My name is J. Craig Gordon, and I'm a member of the Georgia General Assembly. I got elected almost about 15 years ago, and my House district is 163, and that encompasses Midtown Savannah, a little bit of downtown, a little east side, a little west side, and a little bit of the south side. I also am a healthcare administrator and real estate developer.
Okay, a little low.
I like long walks on the beach and soul food.
He is a local native and been here, and his family owns 520 Tavern, 520 Wings, where they got them good chicken. He's trying to be modest, but that's okay. I'll tell the people for you. Okay, my love, Raegan, go ahead and flex for the people.
Okay, I want to say I am from Howard and I was on Howard time, which is on time. So I just needed to throw that really quick. Hi, everyone.
Rough crowd.
My name is Raegan Henderson. Right now, I'm currently based out of Minneapolis. And I grew up in Los Angeles, and I went to the illustrious Howard University, where I graduated with a BFA in arts management. While I was in DC, I was working actually for the government, doing kind of arts grants and arts politics and things like that. I moved to Minneapolis on a fellowship for the leading children's theater company in the country. I was working primarily making sure that there was space for Black children to have art, very particular theater, and I was doing fundraising. From there, I got kind of invested in the local community, and I decided that I was gonna pursue a career in diversity and inclusion. So at the moment, I am the sole practitioner for D&I at a large international law firm in Minneapolis. And I love art. I love making sure that kiddos have art. That's a really big thing for me. And I love making sure that people have space where they feel like they can thrive.
Awesome.
Yeah, so awesome. And that's, that's my Howard sister. That's my girl. So we're going to talk a little bit about some things later. Marcello, go ahead and flex for us. Why you laying on the couch sleep? Get up.
I literally
disrespecting my forum.
I just literally got off work, and so I was a little bit late. It's like my first time doing something live like this, so I might be a little nervous or a little shy. So, I'm from the North. I came down here to the South because of family and the military and government and stuff. So I liked it. I liked the environment here. It was laid back. Ever since then, I wanted to be included into the community. I know some people don't want to get active in it, but I think it's very beneficial and it's very important. So, I started doing as much as I can, and I'm gonna continue doing whatever I can in the community, make a change. Let's keep it brief.
Awesome. You don't have to be shy either. We're amongst family here. You can't
Hey.
even see them who on Facebook. You don't even know what they're saying. So you ain't gotta worry about that. Okay, Carmen, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Hello, everyone. I am Carmen McCullum. I'm the co-founder of TCU, and I met my bestie, Elbi, in the Air Force, where we did work in the intelligence community. And then after I got out of the Air Force, I joined the hospitality industry, where I worked as a GM in Chicago, San Diego, and then New Orleans, where I live now. And Elbi called me. She's like, I've got, this idea. I'm sorry, I've got this TV on. Sorry. She's like, I've got this idea, I need some feedback on it. And I, get back with her every now and again and be like, I gotta go, because hospitality just consumed all of my time. So, I would check things here and there, and I wanted to really support her and come out for the first information session. And when I did that, and I went to Savannah with intentions of just supporting my friend and being there for her, by the end of the trip, I was like, this is something that I really want to be invested in and involved in. And I'm so glad that I did. So that's sort of our journey together. In my free time, I am a mom. I love to cook. My background's hospitality. And I sort of have delved into cooking that way, but yeah.
Carmen is an excellent chef. Everything that I know comes from her. So I'm happy. And see, this is why I can't ever lose no damn weight, because Carmen always.
Damn.
Should we keep our mics on or off, or how do you feel? Should we keep them?
It's up to you. If you have some distractions, then mute yourself. But if if it's just you in the room or whatever, then take your mic off. All right, so I'm gonna introduce myself, and then Darnell's gonna introduce himself, and then we're gonna get right into the forum. All right, so I'm Elbi. I'm the founder of the Culturist Union. I am a U.S. Air Force veteran. I was in the Air Force for 10 years. I did intel. Afterwards, I am a proud SCAD dropout. I went to SCAD for performing arts, singing, dancing, acting. I was like, this is not for me. So then I went to the illustrious, the Mecca, the Omega, Howard University, where I got a BFA in theater arts management. I also did the same fellowship that Raegan did in Minnesota, where I had an emphasis on diversity and inclusion in theater arts. That led me to learning about co-working spaces and learning about, inclusive, safe spaces for people of color, for Blacks, economically, empowering us. And so that brought me back to Savannah to start the Culturist Union. And so the Culturist Union's whole aim is centered around social and economic empowerment for creators, entrepreneurs, and professionals. We host events, we host forums, we host workshops, we partner with local businesses, all to enhance and amplify the Black voice. And so that's a little bit about myself. I'm gonna pass it to Darnell, where he's gonna tell him about himself, and then we're gonna get going.
Good evening, everyone. Once again, I thank you all for being here and being our guests, our co-hosts, and also to all the viewers that are viewing now. And once again, we'd like to remind you to share, comment, heart, like, feel sad or be mad. I'm a native of Detroit, Michigan. I've been a resident here in Savannah for 5 years. United States Marine Corps veteran. I did 8 years United States Marine Corps. Simplified to my brother there, Mr. Smith. Once a Marine, always Marine. In the Marine Corps, I was the weapons instructor, martial arts instructor, and a cannon crewman instructor. Taught on 5 platforms for the Marine Corps. I now attend Savannah State as a part-time student, and full-time I am a political strategist and consultant, and I am the lead marketing strategist for newbie development and consulting, and work with various organizations in Savannah. And I look forward to this roundtable, and I'm excited. That is all I have, ladies and gentlemen.
Awesome. Yeah, me and Darnell, we're both Detroit. Well, he's Detroit. I'm Pontiac. So
the real
better,
Detroit.
But just a skosh better, but I ain't gonna hold it against them. All right, so we're about to get into this thing, and I am super excited. The first topic that we are addressing is the economy. And I'm just gonna go straight into it, okay? All right, so EDAs, Economic Development Authorities, right? We have federal, state, county funds allocated specifically for Black businesses. How can Blacks use the EDA to our advantage?
I think
everybody's like, no.
I think Craig.
Go ahead.
Yes, sir, Mr. Bennet, you can take it.
No,
Mr. Smith.
That's it. Craig should start on that one. Kind of explain exactly what it is, the organization initially, what it is, so we can expound on it.
Definitely. Okay. So EDAs are they are from the city. They're from the. Matter of fact, I'm not even going to do that. I'm going to use Google.
Elbi, are you talking about a specific EDA? Are you talking about like what Savannah's CETA is, or the urban?
Yeah, we're talking about CETA. We're talking about EDAs across the nation.
Mm-hmm.
Federal, state, and county.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. So their purpose is basically, in essence, exactly what you said. They're supposed to provide or bring economic opportunities or resources, or even incentivize businesses to come to a particular state or to a particular city or county. And so in Savannah, we have the Savannah Economic Development Authority, And I think we've got the Trade Center Authority. And then Senator Jackson and I, about 2 years ago, founded, or not founded, but we, through policy, created the Urban Development Authority. The Urban Development Authority's sole purpose and mission was to not replicate what the Savannah Economic Development Authority is doing, but to bring those same incentives and resources and even, do bond transaction into the inner city so that people can find and access resources to develop their communities themselves. The problem that we had run in contact with was getting the initial funds either from the state, the city, or the county to give it the life that it actually needed, or the air or the oxygen to survive and be fully sustainable. So it is an authority by definition. It has all of the same authoritative powers that most of the other authorities in our area, in our state have, but it has been an interesting ride trying to get the resources, from either our county or our city to basically just make it a vehicle that can operate and really fulfill the whole purpose of what it was incepted to be in the first place.
So that leads me to my next question, Craig. So as a legislator, as a business owner, funding or creating this urban authority, how has the wealth gap or the minority gap been maintained, and how as a community can we close it? I guess it's a question for James Bennet too, since you work in the community a lot as well.
Want to take it first, Craig?
No, you go ahead, James.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah. By the way, Craig, we gotta meet up. I know your brother pretty well.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I gotta meet.
We piggyback.
Yeah. So, but on my end of the spectrum, since I'm really, I really studied the economy when I went to college. I have a 3.96 GPA from St. Louis University out of Florida. I'm really big on math and finances and money. That's my whole thing. I look at money from a whole different level perspective. I look at it as numbers. I borrow at 5%, I make 100%. I borrow at 20%, I make 300%. So when people are scared to borrow money, I'm not. Like I literally don't care about an interest rate so long as the profit margin is equatable to what I'm trying to do. So with all these different things that they say is available to us as, colored people or black people or brown people, I've yet to see it. I've started several companies here in Savannah, Georgia, and I've never gotten a grant, never gotten any funding. I've heard about it. I've heard people talk about it, but I've always been able to actually create wealth from, systems that are there, but most of private lending. And it's a great disparity. One of the biggest things people come to me and ask me, JB, I don't know how to start my real estate career. I don't have the money. And I literally had to tell them exactly how I did it. I said to them, listen, nobody's gonna give you money. So I say to everyone that's Black, African American, brown, your credit is the vehicle. I've never had a grant, never had funding. I heard it's there, but it is so difficult. And one thing people always say, the information is not there for you to access it. I'm just learning about some grants like this week out of my office that was available to us by the new stimulus package. I tried to apply for several loans, didn't get it because I'm in real estate. So it's really disheartening and this, just to see that the disparity. They're saying we have all this available to us as a people, but yet still you can't access it. There are no funds. Like a lot of Darnell wants to be one of my interns and go around the real estate stuff, but with all the stuff I'm doing with the real estate, buying back the block, if Craig can tell me exactly where these funds are, I can do so much. Like literally, I've bought areas where people don't want, and I've literally got rid of crime, put up surveillance cameras. I want to be able to start fixing people's houses for them, elderly people. I want to start buying
these resources, and how do we press our cities to use them? How do we get the actual benefits that are supposed to be for us? And this is a question for everybody.
Well, so I guess let's start with the peel of the orange or the apple, if you will, with your first level of the question, which was the wealth gap in general. So right now in America, the average Black family is worth about 10% of what the average white family is. And a lot of that is based on legacy. You know, the fastest way to create wealth generationally, is through life insurance policies and through owning real estate. And so, you know, we've got to start with a pay it forward kind of mantra that, do I want to be the guy in the club with the diamond necklace and the $3,000 shoes on? Or do I want to start putting money away on stuff like, you know, $1 million life insurance policy and owning my home in 20 years versus 30 years, so that maybe my daughter could be the girl that's got the diamond necklace on? I think at a certain point, we've got to figure out, are we living for ourselves, or are we living to create a Rockefeller-like generation moving forward, so that the next down line of children will have it a lot easier than we had it? And so that's why I'm kind of starting from a 20 or 30,000 degree level, and then moving down. I think that one of the best things and worst things that happened to Black folks in America was during the Civil Rights movement, when the Civil Rights Act was officially signed, and it was made criminal to discriminate from minorities, you know, based on color. We stopped going to Black grocery stores. We stopped going to Black dry cleaners. We stopped staying at Black hotels. We stopped eating at Black restaurants. We stopped buying shoes at Black shoe shops and dresses at Black, you know, boutiques, and going to get, you know, Black folks who was custom tailoring suits because we felt like we were too good for ourselves. And so I think that if we want to start talking about creating wealth internally, it's got to start with sacrifices that we make as a family in terms of what we're doing for the next generation. And if we want to create wealth as a community, then our dollar has to start circulating a lot more times amongst each other than it goes out the door and we never see it again. But then to James's question on what is available now.
Can I interject right
there?
there?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'll talk too long. I'm sorry.
I really want, like, so I agree with some of your points, but I have disagreements with some of your points. Because why can't it be, you have this kind of false dichotomy, whereas you're saying, oh, we can't live for ourselves and have what we want and give to our kids and make sure our kids are financially secure. Now, when you, hold on one second, let me collect this, because like, I had it.
I'm not saying don't live for yourself and enjoy the fruits of your labor.
Hold on one second. So I think there's like this debate in our community, whereas like, oh, you want to have the flashy this and that and the third, and I'm not a flashy man myself, or you want to like accumulate wealth, but we have to like really talk about the systemic things that keep us from that. Now we talk about this, the EDAs and the things and things like that on the city, state, and federal level, but we don't know how to get the funds. Like, these funds are available, just like my man said, James said, the funds are available, but we don't know how to get it. The information is not there. So it starts with actually using what is available or getting the information from what's available out there. And I feel as though like your points kind of put the onus on us. Like, we're wrong for not going and shopping and buying Black since the civil rights movement. We're wrong for not putting up or whatever. But that like completely negates the systemic issues that literally are designed to keep us from being able to attain that generational wealth to begin with. So I think it's fundamentally wrong to put the onus on ourselves. Like, oh, if you're just get out there and you're going to a club and you got this, that's a way to detract from the larger issue, which is the fact that we have these organizations that have this funding, that have these programs available, and they don't spend any money to tell us that the funding's there, right? So I think there is room to put onus on us, but that room is to hey, you need to learn what's out there that you can take advantage of. So that way you can get the access to the capital. That way you can get the money the funds to start that business. That way you can get the funds or the government grants or the loans to do what you have to do, instead of, I feel kind of like it's an attack on us to say, oh, you got this
No, well,
$1,000 on.
Okay, so Greg, go ahead and respond.
yeah. So my brother, I would never attack you or attack a sister. I'm just trying to give information. And to James's point, and I think even Darnell mentioned it about being numbers men. I'm just saying, from a numbers perspective, we as African Americans consume a whole lot more than we produce. And so I'm just saying, if you want to look down the road and think about, this is what I want my net worth to be in 3 years or 5 years or 10 years, then there has to be some decisions made at the kitchen table in terms of, what am I buying that's an asset that's an appreciative asset, or what am I investing in on something that's going to help me create that legacy? But I don't judge people based on what they got. I like a lot of nice things, so I'm not going to sit here and be a hypocrite.
I get that. And you're saying, like,
okay, so hold on, Dwayne, hold on.
Time out.
So I guess for me, I have a question, because I hear our points, but I think we're beating this horse a little bit. I want to know, because I ultimately think at the table, here it is. We as a Black community, this is what I'm hearing, so tell me if I'm wrong. We as a Black community have to make better economical choices at a family level, at an individual level. Hey, have I gotten my credit together? Am I cleaning up my credit? Am I cleaning up my debt? Am I making sure that I'm buying a insurance policy on my family? Or am I doing the right thing so I can have generational wealth, right? But the question still remains, how do we get access to all of these opportunities that seem to be swirling around our heads that we can't just grab and get?
Can I interject one?
Go ahead, brother. Important point to make. So that is the point. When you say that we consume more than we produce, well, the entire system's designed that we can't produce, and we can't produce if we aren't able to get the tools that are supposed to exist to help us get to the point where we can produce.
Yeah, I think you're making some valid points, Dwayne. I think you're making some valid points, but I want to go back to something that Craig said that stuck out to me, that I think is so important, that oftentimes as a Black community, and I think we do ourselves a disservice to talk over a topic and not talk at the topic. And the truth of the matter is when we want to talk about the economy, because that's the topic that we're talking about, we have to understand, in the Black community, we have taken out the mental understanding of what wealth really is. And so when we want to attack and talk about the economy and how do we get access to capital and how do we grow our businesses, we have to first take out the mindset that we are starting out as a disadvantage. You understand that your race and that you are in a dynasty, in a group, in a sector, that understand that there are going to be decades and years and years of oppression. So the first thing we have to do is understand that there are systems that are out there where you can go in and understand, now, how do I make a seat at the table? So many people say that they want to be brought to the table, but how can you bring a seat to the table and understand where you're at? For example, I know we're talking about EDAs, but when we're talking about economic development and wealth inside of our communities, there's something also called, and this is beneficial for you too, James, as a real estate man, I'm not sure if you're familiar with something that's called a DBE, which is called a Disadvantaged Business Enterprise. This is actually a certificate, a certification that is given to any occupation or business that is able to occupy underneath like a $22 million threshold, that allows you to work on jobs in public and private sectors, allows you to work in government and in private sectors, that other communities that not just are Black, but that are other communities that are able to take advantage of. A lot of Black people don't understand that you can go and become a DBE, get the certification to allow you to take your business to the next level and also be considered be an MBE. So the point of what I'm saying is this, is that I think oftentimes the question is, where do we search for answers? And sometimes the answers are right in front of us. Sometimes it's about going to these established systems and understanding that I deserve a seat at this table because I meet a spectrum. If you haven't made up to $22 million, you're able to become a DBE today. So that is something that I'm saying that we can start at, is really understanding and take these mental blocks off of just about where do I find access. Have you looked in the windows that are there? Have you gone to your local municipality websites and looked up small business opportunities? Have you gone to the business chambers that are available and asked, what are your mechanisms that you have? Let's not give a pass to our Black chambers. Let's not give a pass to our minority chambers that are there. What access to capital have they given? So I thought that point should be made.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think you're right on the point. Going to find that access to capital and looking that up. I have a saying, Mr. Google knows everything. So like it starts at that local level, walking into your municipality and saying, hey, what do you have? What kind of business programs do you have? Yeah, I'm right on with that.
All right, well, let's move on. Okay.
I thank you all for sharing. That was great. That was great on economics.
You know what, Darnell? You sitting back laughing, eating popcorn, and I'm about to fire you as a moderator, first of all.
I tried to do a little something, just a little bit. So we're going to get into something that's a big topic right now, and that's civil rights. Civil rights, and the first thing we're going to get into is criminal justice reform. Last night, our Senator Lester Jackson, was on live feed with the historic First African Baptist Church, and they were discussing this bill. They were discussing the difference between his bill and the Lieutenant Governor bill. But we're not going to touch that too much unless you guys really want to get into that. But the first question we have to kick this segment off is, what are some legislations that were missed during the civil rights movement, and how do we implement them as a society now? And anyone take a first stab?
Reparations.
Sir, go ahead, sir. Say that again.
Oh, I was literally about to say that.
Okay.
I've toyed with that number for 17 years, and when I have quantified what the value of 40 acres and a mule is going for right now, it's about $450,000 per Black family.
Wow. Right.
And does reparations just mean money? Does reparations mean that, like Ice Cube said on Twitter the other day, should we not have to pay taxes? Should, what is reparations, and what is the dollar amount?
Let me say this now. Let me say this though. When we say civil rights, you understand that the civil rights wasn't just about African Americans. It was about the average white woman. It's about the disabled. So when we talk about reparations in the civil rights movement, do they all get those reparations, or are we just talking about the African Americans?
Oh, I thought you were specifically talking about Blacks in America in the civil rights movement, Darnell. So
I got you. I got you.
I mean, I guess the first thing that we missed was separating ourselves from, instead of collectively putting ourselves under this umbrella under civil rights. I don't think that we should have had civil rights. I think as Black Americans, as descendants of slaves, I believe that we should have been separate. We should have been taken care of separately from anything else. I don't understand how we even need these laws if we are just as American and just as important and just as, and we contribute to the foundation and the fabric of this country.
So So from a policy perspective, and again, I study public policy. So it's long-winded, right? I said I study public policy and its effects on economically disadvantaged and Black communities in America. What that translates to is I study how the United States of America has used laws and legal framework to essentially oppress Black people generally and poor people. So you can think of it that way. But to the question of what is reparations, does it have to be money? Now, I personally don't think it has to be money. It should include money. But I think just like Mr. Gordon said, I'm sorry, I don't know your first name because it just says J. Craig Gordon. But
you can call me Craig.
Craig, okay, good to go. Just as Craig said, housing, like generational wealth is built by, and Ms. James said, generational wealth is built by housing. We have more houses in the United States that sit vacant than people in the United States, right? So if we're talking reparations for 40 acres and a mule, give people a house so they can have that generational wealth.
I like this brother. I like this brother. I like this brother. I'm gonna touch on. I like you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Like, we have so much land here. We have so many houses here. We have so much everything. It can be either or. It doesn't have to be one or the other. There's a yes and yes, money and housing. So we can build that generational wealth because we have several 100-year, backlog on like the ability to build it. Yes, and changing the policies of redlining that keep us in ghettos or try to push us towards ghettos. Yes, and changing the funding, the way we fund school systems that discriminates explicitly against Black and brown people, right? Through property tax, change that up. There are policy solutions for that. And I think reparations should be a yes and approach.
You know what? I want to hear what Asli has to say because you work a lot on housing evictions in Savannah. So I want to hear what you think about this point.
I mean, thank you. Especially more recently with everything going on in the pandemic. I really only recently started working with evictions and trying to make sure people aren't getting evicted during the pandemic. But just the idea that from the beginning, we were set up in a very specific way. Everything was very planned so that we could fall behind. And the fact that we're playing so much catch up, that's why I agree so much with what you said, Dwayne, about getting that property and being able to start that generational wealth. And especially being an immigrant who comes from Tanzania, where we are such a young country. We gained independence a little over 50 years ago. So we're struggling with that too. Everyone's trying to buy back land. Everyone's trying to, grow that wealth that we once had in Tanzania, in Africa. So I think the fact that someone can't even say, I own this home, I'm living in this home, my grandmother's lived in this home, my great-grandmother has lived in this home, and we've owned it all those years, and it runs in the family, that we have property. So if anything else fails, we at least have this property, is devastating to me and so upsetting. Because I know so many white folks who are like, I've got this property, and if all else fails, there's this rental property, and my parents bought my place when I went to college, so I've got that set up for me. Like, they are set, they are good to go. There's a lot less fear and this anxiety of what am I going to give my children? There have been so many times in my family where we have conversations of, okay, if anything happens to me today, what can I pass along to my kids so they can sustain themselves? And I think it's so much more of a stressor for Black and brown people than it is for many white folks, particularly in the US. I think it's just a given. I was talking to my partner about this, and we were talking about how I grew up thinking, wouldn't it be nice if I could own a house one day? I would love that. I would wish for that. I hope for that. Whereas I speak to a white friend and they say, oh, I know one day I'm going to have a house. Like, it's just, they take it for granted. They're like, of course I'm going to buy a house. Of course I'm going to get that. I'm going to have the car, the 2.5 kids.
GAD students, a lot of GAD students, their parents will buy them houses in Savannah so they can rent with their friends. And they don't have to, and now they have free housing for 4 years if someone just paid their mortgage and their equity.
Well, get that rental money too.
That rent
money is your pocket money.
Yeah, and then they sell it at the end of 4 years, and boom, they just made a little bit of profit.
Yeah,
I think Asli kind of low key hit on an important thing about the psychological sense of belonging, right? We are inhabiting a country that was never designed for us, and having that sense of belonging, having that sense of this is my property, my kids will inherit this, like I belong here, goes a long way to deprogramming all the negative things that were programmed into us throughout the history of this country, right? So I think that's important too, Asli. You hit on it.
Can I add something?
Please.
Just two quick things. Yeah. I just want to, one, make sure like when we're talking about reparations, we're also thinking about healthcare and kind of just making sure that discrimination in healthcare is something that we're looking at, and access to healthcare. So beyond, I think you were talking about psychological kind of belonging, making sure that physically we're able to belong. And then Elbi, this is like taking it back to a point you had, but we were talking about civil rights. You were talking about kind of how just as a Black community, maybe we should have separated out kind of ourselves. And I think this is something we do when we're having this discussion. We're not thinking intersectionally, and how racism does not preclude you from misogyny or homophobia. And that while I think, yes, we can talk as a whole Black community, I want to make sure we're not forgetting Black women and we're not forgetting the Black LGBTQ community.
Oh, yes. Awesome. I really
Absolutely.
like that you hit that, because it's true. Yeah, there's, it's a whole nother point, but there's a lot of homophobia and a lot of misogyny in the Black community. That should
If
be
I could just interject here,
Go
after
ahead. Get to that.
we're going to work. We're just going to work our way into that. And Mr. Craig Gordon, I know you were specifically talking about African Americans, but I just wanted to bring that point out just to have a good transition to the LGBTQ.
Oh, of course. I think I just said that, D, because this was a Juneteenth forum.
I get
feel
it.
like maybe because I'm the oldest cat on the phone, I'm being like treated like a whipping post, because literally y'all realize everything y'all just said over the last 5 minutes was what I said when I got on the phone. Life insurance, real estate, your legacy, healthcare for all. That y'all ripped me to shreds 15, 20 minutes ago.
Hold on. I'm going to be fair with you, and I'm going to be straight up, because I speak directly, and that's the only way I know how.
I'm just messing with you, bro. But please always speak directly. I mean,
you did say that, but like I can't say, like, I can't stand when people are like putting the onus on us, like we are wrong. The country literally is designed to make us feel like we are wrong all the time. You're doing this wrong, you're doing that wrong. So when you put the onus on us, like, yo, you're buying $300 pairs of shoes, but you don't have any bonds, like, come on, like, the country's already tearing us down, and that's only half the truth. We can have a yes and.
Well, I'm gonna say this, just to be on with Craig. I drive nice cars. I am in the club with all kinds of jewelry on. People think I'm some kind of football player, some kind of big rapper. People look at me over celebrities, and I also still do the stuff that Craig says. You can have it both ways. For me, Craig is actually saying is that, you know, we need to also try to help ourselves while we're trying to attain what Dwayne is saying, which is, where is my money? Where is my opportunity? Give it to me. And Craig is saying, well, while we're doing that, let's go ahead and take a little piece of life insurance. Let's go ahead and try to, you know, put a little bit of generational wealth aside until the good folks of America decide to give us what we so deserve. And I love the fact that they said that housing. I'm big. Every single time I hear the city raise their taxes, the county raise their taxes, we got Black people sitting on city council, and we struggling. I got a huge scared building going up in a Black-owned neighborhood. All of a sudden, now everything around it gets bought out. They get priced out the neighborhood. I see it every day. I try to stop it. And the powers that be that's supposed to be helping us out of this, they're not. So Craig is right. Dwayne is right. We need to go ahead and combine those efforts to move the entire people forward.
James, can I add another effort? I'm just gonna chime in. I agree with you both. And I think one thing that I think we always emphasize at Howard, and something that I got coming from a background of feeling like I didn't understand the history behind the things that you guys are talking about. And I think a lot of youth feel that way. Our education system is designed so that we don't understand why we don't have access to these things. Like, that's why I agree with you, Dwayne, because I do think just systemically, we have been pushed out because we've had these things before. You talk about discrimination and mortgages and things like that. And I come from a family who owns property, and I come from a grandfather who was discriminated against and had to work very hard to get that property. But I also recognize that I have a lot of privilege because of my background and wealth that other people don't have, or access to education. So I want to add that as another thing, James, to put in there, just making sure we're educated.
And just, and I don't want like Dwayne to think that the way that I think is an absolute. Like, and James, thank you for like breaking it down into that perspective. I never wanted it to be so linear that I'm saying people just need to be out here working and not like enjoying life. Like I always like on a like third grade level feel like if you get $1, 25% should run your house. The other 25%, you should invest in something that's going to make you another $1. The other 25%, you should spend on yourself and have a good time, whether that's a steak dinner or a trip to Vegas to see a prize fight or a piece of jewelry. And then that last quarter you should save, or that's the legacy money that goes toward your kids or your grandkids. What I have a problem with is the brother or the sister who spends the whole $1 and doesn't put any portion, whether it's 25%, 50 cents, 75%, or whatever, back into a sustainable ecosystem. So I think you need to have an outlet to make yourself feel good, to go out.
There is that person who does that. I'm just wondering why as a community, maybe that's something you believe that we value. And I will also say there's some really good research just for people who are watching. The Center for Economic Inclusion and McKinsey Consulting has really good research about how even if you come from like a privilege, your family owns property, Black middle class individuals are 2 times or 3 times more likely than white counterparts to fall back into poverty.
Yep. Yeah. That's it. So I'm going to get to that point. Like to your point, like this
is the last point, you guys, and we're last point. No more points.
Okay. Person who spends the whole $1, right? It is expensive as heck to be poor, right? So sometimes you have to spend you just have to, because it's expensive to be poor. But to James's point, that he mentioned, like, hey, I mentioned going to say, where's my money? Where are these opportunities? Like, I want to put it out there. I'm pretty radical when it comes to politics. I'm not saying, hey, give me my money. Where's these opportunities? I'm saying, hey, I'll vote for you. And I've got 200 family members in this district who can vote for you. And they all have X amount of friends in this district that can vote for you. You're either going to take this money that you got from the government that's public information, and you're going to put it into our community, or you're not going to have a job next election cycle.
I love it.
I am an advocate for pushing that change, not just going to say, where's the change? Where's the money? No, push it. We'll vote you out.
All right. Thank you so much, Dwayne. I appreciate you. All right, Darnell, let's go to the next point.
Elbi, I had one last thing. I had one.
Rob is the closer.
No, 5 seconds. I promise, Elbi. But this is so good, guys. But I think sometimes we get a little frustrated because we, as a community, and I include myself in that, we have faced so much difficulty that we don't allow ourselves to find the triumph first in something that we can tackle. And we put all these things up on the board, and then we look, in the next generation hasn't gone further than the previous generation because we haven't focused on how can we change our own environment. So, I mean, I know we're going to move on, but my just thing is I see all these king and queens on here, whether it's a real estate firm, whether it's an LGBTQ nonprofit, whether it's in a state house, whether it's, through your own minority chamber. I hope that we are taking the platforms ourselves, because if you don't reach your neighbor, the person who you're walking out next door to every day, then we can't expect for the world to change. So for the folks who are watching online, we get so upset with all these things like, oh my gosh, it's true. So much about Black culture has been taken advantage of, but how we own back the block, how we own back our culture is making a decision, first of all, to change the things that we can change. How you can change poverty, the first step on your own is waking up and making a conscious decision that your family will look at the $1 different. How you spend it that day, we'll look at it different.
Amen.
Amen. Okay, Robert, I'm gonna let you have your points when you need to have your points. All right, Darnell, let's move on before these people start talking up again. Come on.
We didn't even talk about criminal justice reform.
We barely got up. Darnell, go ahead.
So, and I mean, I'm really enjoying the responses, and we actually just covered a subject which we were going to talk about, which was reparations. So we knocked that out the park. So just so we could get our viewers this question answered. So what are some more things that we have missed during the civil rights movement that should have passed and should have happened that we should do now and implement now? Anyone other than reparations?
But what is the question?
Concerning African
What's the
Americans.
question?
What are some things that was missed during the civil rights movement that wasn't passed concerning legislation that that needs to be implemented now?
Well,
I guess my not necessarily misinterpretation, Darnell, but I guess for a clearer understanding, because I feel like this came up a couple of minutes ago. Can you define what period of civil rights movement you're talking about? Because of course it was a strong, civil rights movement as it related to Black folks between, the 50s and the 60s. And then in the 70s, you had civil rights as it related to whether somebody should, be enlisted in a draft. And in the 80s, you had the kind of infant stages of the LGBTQ movement itself. So, and that was a civil rights movement by itself. So what movement are we talking about?
We're talking about the early 60s to the 70s.
As it relates to Blacks?
Yes, sir. As it relates to Black. Yes, sir.
Well, I'm like I said, during that time, I was a youngster. I wasn't even born yet, but I think what they missed during that particular time is what's been plaguing African American men and women and families for generations, which is the incarceration of Black people. I think that if you're going to be fighting for Black people in the civil rights movements, we're still having the same issues when it comes on to people going to jail and getting locked up for crimes and not being able to bond themselves out, because it gets back to Dwayne's point where it's expensive to be poor. Can't afford $300-400 bond because you got to go buy food for your family, so your girlfriend is to sit in jail for 8 months. So I think we missed that. Getting out of the civil rights movement for Black people and brown people, we should have something better. We still have this issue with prison. This one thing. I have a gentleman that worked for me, great guy, Army veteran, got arrested over some girlfriend-boyfriend situation, got in trouble, got some 5 years probation, came back out after a year, was working for me. He flipped 2 houses with me, made good money, got some girlfriend issues again. She called the cops on him. Cops came, 8 cars, took him to jail over some weed in the car. He's still in jail. Like there has to be something better for us. There has to be a way for us to get back the nucleus of the Black family, the man, the woman, the kids, and you will have a better foundation. We missed it.
Well, let me segue. Okay, go ahead, Dwayne.
So that kind of speaks to, I dig it, right? Black family, but like I'm not on the man, woman, Black family. Like we should be LGBTQ plus inclusive, and not every family looks that way. But and at the same time, I think one of the major things we missed, policing is as a whole is just jacked up, and I can talk about that all the time. I've got a paper being published about it. But one of the things we missed is mental health. You come from X amount of hundreds of years of slavery to X amount of years of Jim Crow to X amount of years of freaking just blatant racism all the way to this day. We didn't do anything about the mental health, the mental strain that takes on us, right? You say you're free, and then you don't give us 40 acres and a mule, and then you put us out there and like have us work and assimilate into society, but how? And in the civil rights movement, like we're still trying to figure out, at that point, we're still trying to figure out us and fix us. Well, mental health is important, and we missed that. We missed that boat. Intergenerational trauma is a real thing. And at that time, we were real heavy in it. We're still real heavy in it. So
how do we change and challenge the mental health stigma in the Black community? How do we dismantle the strong Black man, strong Black woman trope?
Oh man, that's a good question. I honestly, so I can tell you how I dismantled it in myself.
Please. Start with self, right?
So first, yeah, right. Start with self. That's a good mantra. So first and foremost, going to mental health. I have ADHD, so that's it. My son has autism spectrum disorder, and that's just something I live with within myself, right? But at the same time, right, that strong black man, strong black woman trope comes from just who do you want to be, really? Like, we have to ask ourselves that question when we're talking about, oh, my parents raised me this way, my parents raised me that way. They told me to shut up. They told me, suck it up. Don't be a girl. Don't cry. Men don't cry, or whatever. And then we push that on our kids. It's like, but did we really come out fine from that? Like, our parents raised us this way and we came out fine. No, we didn't come out fine, because we're telling our little boys, hey, don't cry, suck that shit up. Oh, excuse me, suck that up, right? And then they're coming out with the same issues, right? We can't be vulnerable because we always have to be tough. So you really have to ask yourself, who do you want to be and how do you want to be? Do you want to be compassionate? Do you want to have an understanding with your partner via your male partner, male body partner, female body partner, your trans partner? Do you want to be considerate? Do you want to be emotionally intelligent? Do you want to be a good partner or not? Right? And that comes from noticing, like, hey, this is the trauma I have. Let's deal with that and let's talk about it and let's face it and let's be vulnerable, because
I want to hear what Asli has to say about this.
Oh, I got so much to say.
I
I can talk about mental health all day. And coming from, I mean, I'm Black, I'm mixed in so many ways. I have family from all over, and we didn't talk about mental health. We didn't talk about, it was like, you got a boo-boo? Okay, fix it up, you good. What you crying for? I'll give you a reason to cry for. Like, very much the strong Black mom who will give you a reason to cry. And even opening up the conversation of going to therapy with my mom. I was seeing a school counselor and I didn't tell her. I was suffering from severe depression and I couldn't say anything about it because I was like, that's not what we do. My parents have struggled. They keep on keeping on. So I thought, if I'm going to complain about this, they're going to think I'm just whining. So I shoved it down and then eventually went to a school counselor. My mom either found out or I told her one day, I said it in passing and she was like, what? You're going to school and talking to some white man about your problems? No. And then trying to convince her to let me go to an actual therapist, a licensed therapist, was painful. It was really hard. I think now she sees the benefit of it because she's seen how much I have been able to heal from that time and how I was truly in a dark place because she saw what it looked like for me to get out of it. And that therapy was such an important part of that. And I think even till this day, I'm trying to convince my parents to go to therapy. I want everybody to go to therapy. I'm the biggest therapy advocate. I'm like, if you have access to therapy.
I have a question. Do you think that therapy is the only way? Or do you think that we as a community should recognize all different types of mental health wellness, such as meditation or elder therapy, or what they say, spending time with your granny, all of that, like, or journaling or going into the arts. I want to hear from James because I'm going to stereotype you, James. Please, I'm just going to put it out there. Y'all Caribbean men, y'all be out here crazy as hell.
All right.
I just want to know from y'all be out here like that's the stereotype. What is your thoughts on mental health? What is your thoughts on therapy? What is your thoughts? Like, we're here, we got you. So I'm gonna ask.
Okay, so first and foremost, everything y'all said is correct. Okay. Yeah, us Caribbean men, we're wilding, okay? I get it. It's correct. I can't even lie, okay? I won't lie to y'all. But I'm also a Gemini, okay? So there's two sides to me.
Oh, you extra crazy.
Yeah, extra. So, but I'm real big on this mental health thing. Being in the military, being raised by Caribbean parents, where I felt like I was in actually an abusive relationship, mentally, emotionally, and physically, and learning that I wasn't good enough because I'm Black. Even though I was in an island of Black people, because my other brothers and sisters were lighter skin colored than me. I had to struggle and fight harder. Now I'm the, went from the black sheep to now I'm now the strong black person of family. Being here in America, dealing with racism and dealing with the military. I think that every single health policy that we have should include some kind of therapy for black people. They should address it for black people because, as Dwayne said, we have experienced years of slavery, whether it be with your grandparents before them, and it comes all the way down. We need to understand that hurt people hurt people. That's one of the biggest things when people said recently, well, we talking about cops shooting black people or white people shooting black people. Let's address black and black crime. Okay, we can address it, but you're missing the whole point. We're mentally unstable. We are. We're hurt. We're chemical. We're unbalanced. So yes, we need to address it. So I take a Prozac every single day. Got out of the military. I had anger problems, and I used to take it out on my family and take it out on people, and I couldn't control myself sometimes. And I'm around a lot of people that have a lot of money and a big wig people. So I say, you know what? I have to go get some therapy. Went to my doctor at the VA. He said, I don't want you to go to therapy yet. Try this. And the day I tried taking Prozac is the day my life actually changed. It made me a better person, a better man, a better friend, a better everything. So we need it as black people.
I will add that I think just two things. One thing is that I think something that I've come encounter with is that there's not a lot of mental health professionals who are equipped to deal with racialized trauma and sometimes actually contribute to the re-traumatization of Black people in therapy, which is really unfortunate. So I think, as we're talking about mental health, one thing I think is we need more professionals who are trained in this, and two, more Black health professionals who do this. And we need to address discrimination. I've been to a therapist that told me what I was experiencing, I was making up, like it wasn't actually racist. You think that. So I think that is something that's really important. I also want to address mental health when it comes to Black love and Black relationships, because I think that there is a big ride or die mentality, or I have to go very hard for my partner. Also, I have to be okay and comfortable with abuse from my partner. And that's just across the board, and figuring out how we get out of that stigma of feeling like we have to tolerate abuse, even from ourselves.
Let's talk about that.
That's a good one. I have something for that. 1 second, but I wanna say, like, your point on like having therapists that understand like Black issues. Like, I came across a post, and I think everybody should do it. Every Black person should do it. When you go to a new therapist or you go to a therapist, you should ask your therapist. It's an interview. That first session is an interview for them and for you. Ask your therapist what they think about systemic racism and what their part is to dismantle it, right? That will tell you literally everything you need to know about whether or not you can trust your therapist to talk about these things with it, right?
Yeah.
First thing. And we definitely need more Black therapists. Now back to the ride or die mentality. I'm actually writing a book about relationships. I'm polyamorous, if you guys don't know, which means I believe that it's possible to love more than one person at a time and have fulfilling romantic relationships with more than one person at a time that are individual and unique. Anyway, with that being said, right, I think and it comes down from our conditioning. There's this theory that we have to be our partner's everything. And like our value is based on how much we're our partner's everything. And we gotta stop that. Like that's garbage. Like, we have to fulfill ourselves. I say be your own.
What's your favorite quote?
One of my favorite quotes is be your own primary partner first, right? Our relationship with ourselves comes first. We have to be our own primary partner. And we say that and we think, oh no, if we're not putting everything into our person, then we don't really love them. It's like, yeah, but you gotta love you first, right? And you gotta make yourself happy first, because it's actually not your partner's job to make you happy. and we expect our partners to make us happy. Like, it's our jobs to make us happy, ourselves happy, and then we together make our relationship work. So
Yeah, that's a really good point, Dwayne. I think oftentimes that we forget that mental health also has classism. Like, mental health has levels. And, from my perspective, I'm an entertainment guy, and I've been really fortunate to work in some huge entertainment engines like BMI, like the Grammys. And I've got to sit at tables with some folks who we listen to on the radio, who we watch on the gram, who we admire with millions and millions of followers. And they are suffering with identity loss. They're suffering with being able to keep up with social life and social media and being real and actually cashing a check and figuring out life themselves. And so I think so much about it for those who are watching too at home is understanding that the folks who you might be admiring, especially in this millennial generation, are suffering as well. So when you're seeking help and you're looking for a great example of how to come out of something, you got to take this idea of everything you see online has to be your life. Like, the cars might be somebody else's life, but I promise you, so many of those guys are renting them. So many of those people that are flexing, the hair comes out at night, like the teeth come out at night. Like, I mean, it's real talk, but we don't like to address those things. So we have to break down that barrier. And when you break down that barrier, you allow yourself to love yourself more. When you understand that I don't have to wake up and do my work with the thumb, like I can wake up and do the work with my mind, I can wake up and do the work with my feet, your whole life changes. You hustle different, you obtain different.
Yep.
yeah, I feel that super hard. Like, you just have to wake up and just understand that you have to, like, this isn't real. So be real with yourself first, and like, fix yourself. Start with yourself.
And if you needed a reminder, you see what's going on the headlines almost every day these last 2 weeks. Like, you see what's happening in Atlanta, you see what's happening in Brunswick, you see all these places, what's taking place. This is real life. What's done on here is not real life. Like, what is real is what you wake up every day and do. And that goes for every topic we're talking about. How to come out of poverty, how to become the best person, how to obtain your next step in life, is understanding that this is not everything that exists. This is just a stone to push it forward.
Another question for you guys. Do we need a new Malcolm and a new Martin? And who is it if we do?
Ooh, I might jump in there just because I have a fresh thought.
Go ahead. Sis.
I don't know if any of y'all listen to Small Doses by Amanda Seales. Fantastic. You should check it out.
Because I don't have time. I'm jumping on my trampoline.
This exact topic. Someone brought up, like, who's our Malcolm? Who's our Martin? And she made such a great point, her and I think one of the guest speakers or commentators who came in, that, we got to have a little bit of both, because even Martin had some Malcolm moments and even Malcolm had some Martin moments. But I think even more importantly is not holding ourselves to these like set archetypes. I think so much so we look back and we're like, oh, this person is more like Martin and this person is more like Malcolm, or people even group it, I think, within especially the Black community, of we need to be more like Martin and less like Malcolm, or fully Malcolm and not take anything from Martin. Whereas I think we need to pave our own. There was probably a version of Malcolm and Martin before Malcolm and Martin. And I think in order to really become and to sit in our time now and make a real change in the time we live in now, we need to form our own and pave our own. So I don't think there's no Martin in Malcolm.
Go ahead, Craig. I want to hear what you have to say.
Well, no, and I didn't mean to be rude, but I agree with everything the sister said. But I don't feel like they ever went anywhere. I feel like their teachings, their publishings, and their speeches are so iconic that physically they left, but but they still flow and are relevant even to this day. And so I don't think we need a new Malcolm or a new Martin any more than we need a new Biggie or a new Pac. Like, there's nothing that's ever going to replace the lyrics in any of those cats. And I love Nas, I love Jay-Z, I love Andre 3000, but it's never going to be another Biggie. It's never going to be another Pac. It's never going to be another Malcolm, and it's never going to be another Martin. But again, to me, they never went anywhere anyway. It's 2 or 3 Malcolm speeches I keep in my mental circulation that I'm listening to on my phone. His House Negro speech and his speech in his debate at Yale. like I keep in rotation at least 2 or 3 days a week.
I dig it. I'm with you on that, Craig, and I'm with you. Yeah, we don't need a new Martin or a new Malcolm. We need you. We need you to step up in your space, in your bubble, and stand up and stand with us and get people to stand with you too, right? I'm all about the push for change. Stand up on your own, say what you need to say, and say it loud and say it to everybody. And if you want to take the lead, people will follow, but you have to start walking first, right?
Yes.
So speak out, speak up, and like put it to these systems that are designed, they're supposed to be there to help, but like aren't doing anything. Put it to them. Go to your city council meetings and speak out and speak up. Tell them what's wrong. It doesn't have to be something profound. If there's too many potholes in your street, talk about that, right? I'm serious. It's a joke, but it's serious. Like, speak out. If it's not right and the system is not working for you, go to the systems and tell them, and then get people organized and make it happen.
I love that you bring out something like potholes, because everyone sees it as like, we need these grand sweeping changes. And I think that's why Malcolm and Martin come back a lot as references, because they were so influential on a large scale and so visible in the movement. But for every Malcolm and Martin, there were so many strong Black women behind them, and so many folks in the community doing that small work. There was someone who was making sure that speech was written, that people showed up, that everyone, there was organizers left, right, and center. We just don't hear their names the way we hear Malcolms and Martins and everyone else, even Rosa Parks. I mean, there was a woman who was doing that well before Rosa Parks. I cannot remember her name right now, but these are just the people who made it out into history and into the books and onto the media. And we have so many other folks. And that's why I love that you bring up those small potholes, because I think sometimes I speak to people my age and they're like, how am I supposed to make this big change? It's not all on you, boo. Yeah. You don't have to do the entire movement on your own. You could be a cog in the machine, but we still need you to keep that machine running. So join us.
Exactly.
It's funny you guys mentioned that. Go ahead.
Change starts on the local level. Change starts where you are at. It doesn't start like you're not jumping up to and like Craig said, Martin and Malcolm never left, but we're not trying to jump up to be on a national scale and national spotlight. Change starts where you're at. It starts in your Facebook bubble. It starts on your social media. It starts in your city, right? Because the first time a cop shoots somebody in your city, and we'll probably get to that later, like the first people that can hold them accountable are elected officials, right? From your city. So change starts where you're at. And if you are advocating change where you're at, and your family and your friends and everyone and the people you organize and get are advocating change where you're at and forcing that change, that is what bubbles out to these national level movements. That is what makes the progress happen, but it can't happen unless we're actively working to change, starting where we're at with potholes, I guess.
Absolutely. I think I tell people all the time, if you want to talk about change, especially from an ally perspective, and I know we have several allies watching right now, have you spoken to your racist uncle or your granddaddy about these problems? Have you, when someone is talking at work and they're saying little slick stuff, did you say, oh, this is offensive and you probably shouldn't say that? Or did you report it to HR? Or were you afraid that you were going to lose your job? Are you willing to lose your job fighting for what is right? Are you willing to give up your board seat for a more qualified person, Black person, who should be in that position? Have you done your own inner work to, fight off biases and stigmas? Have you unlearned the things that you need to unlearn? Everybody wants to talk about things from a macro perspective, and I think it really starts with self. In your environment, your people, birds of a feather flock together. In your space, are you doing the work? I can only do the work that I can do from my orbit. So I'm going to reach these people, which I did on this platform because I could touch them And I could call them and I could say, "Lay, let's get together and let's put this platform up and let's talk about this and let's see if we can get some work prospectively." I know that there are going to be elected officials or people who are potentially going to be elected officials who will be watching. You should take heed, elected officials, because this is what you need to do. This is what our perspective. You want to know how you can help us? Give us the tools so we can utilize the EDAs that are locally. You want to help us? Teach us how we can write legislation so that we can do better work for our community. Teach us how to protest about our potholes. You're here, you're listening, so do the work. You hear us, we're loud and clear, this is what we need. And it starts from a micro level.
Well, I think that every single one of you guys here, I commend all you kings and queens, and I believe that what Craig said, we don't need another Malcolm, we don't need another anybody. What we need is right here. Every single one of us has a little bit of, we listen to a little bit of Biggie, a little bit of Pac, a little bit of, we have a little Malcolm, a little bit of, we have a little bit of every Rosa Parks, everything. And this is what I love. The fact that you got me, I'm trying to buy back the block. You have Dwayne. I love Dwayne because Dwayne is kind of like me. I want to go kicking doors and say, listen, give me this because I paid for it. I pay all the taxes. I love how, you know what I'm saying, everybody has something that they bring here. So we all have a little bit of all of that within us. And this is what it takes. It's people like Darnell that reaches out to me and know who I was. And, you know, JB, I need for you to be a part of this. And I'm passionate about stuff, but like I said, if we don't reach out of our bubble and start reaching other people, that we won't get anywhere.
Awesome. I know that, oh, go ahead, Raegan.
And I just want to add this, and I just want to make sure when we are doing reaching out, I think sometimes there can be a lot of classism in the Black community and a lot of elitism and other isms. And I think a lot of times we tend to reach out with people who have similar backgrounds, maybe education or whatever that is. And I want to make sure we are reaching out to communities in the Black community that are different from ours.
Good point.
Yeah,
Great
that's so good.
Great
so
segue.
Good.
We were gonna address this, me and Darnell. All right, so
Like they're tearing our outline apart, Elbi.
I know, I see.
They hitting everything. They hitting everything.
Y'all really are, but I'm glad. Cancel culture. Yeah. Are we too quick in the Black community to cancel our own? Or should we educate our own? Cancel culture or educate? I want to hear you guys' opinion. I want to hear Mr. Marcello Page's opinion because he's sitting here like a fly on the wall. Yes. Sir.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Can you repeat that one more time?
Cancel culture. Are we too quick to cancel our own, or should we take the time to educate them?
I don't think I can answer that quite well. So I think you should pick someone else for that topic because I don't feel comfortable, I guess, making my response for that.
Marcus, Marcello, I'm sorry. I actually feel like Black folks are one of the most forgiven races on the planet, period. I mean, when I think about all the times we forgave OJ and Tiger, I mean, we systemically, I feel like just love each other. I feel like we don't cancel people as fast as other folks cancel other people. That's just my 2 cents.
Can I just say that I don't think we cancel Black men as fast as we cancel Black women.
Thank you.
That's all I'm gonna say.
I think it's right. I think I think you have a point, Raegan. And so really quick though, you said something so powerful, and I teach on this daily. Like I travel the country teaching this principle that I love that you tapped on. I think we forget, which is the power of understanding your environment. And oftentimes as a culture, we want to come and we want to be on the come up. And you talked about making sure when you reach out, that you're not just reaching out to people who assimilate towards you, but you're not afraid to reach out to people that are above you and achieve more. Like there are people now that are in your environment that you are wasting literally their space because you're not utilizing them. Not these folks who are on here, but if you're watching this, you have to be able to not be afraid to talk, to say, oh, that uncle, he's so good, he's so rich, we don't talk to them because they live on the other side. You gotta break that up, and we hold that down too much. I'm sorry, that was like burning me. I had to say that because that's so important. But I think in entertainment, we pick and choose who we want to cancel. I'm an entertainment guy, straight up. So I understand that when we talk about, I deal with facts and figures, when we talk about record sales, I will leave nameless, but there are certain men particularly that we allow to dominate the charts in music because we give them a pass versus some women who have dominated in charts and have had public displays and have been put on cancel. So I think we make up in our minds who and when we decide to give a pass to. And so in order to equalize cancel culture or decide who gets it, first, I think we have to make a stance for ourselves, what is acceptable and what is not acceptable in the community. This is what we will stand for and this is what we won't stand for. And there's so many blurred lines with so many different movements where we give passes in some movements but don't give passes. Like if we're not going to say derogatory words, Black women step up to the plate as well and say, hey, look, I'm not going to use it even with my girlfriends. I know that's controversial, but we have to make sure that we have a staple where we're starting to put demands on respecting each other before we expect other people to lift us up.
That's real.
I think that's real.
Yeah, I mean, I could talk ad nauseum about how I feel about cancel culture. Again, another podcast. I'm just going to keep plugging these people. They don't pay me, but go off, sis. Danielle Cadet is the host. She's fantastic. I see you shaking your head, Raegan. Yeah, they were just talking about cancel culture, and something that I thought was so fantastic that they brought up is we view so much of the issues we have within the Black community with the lens of white folks. We see it as we don't want to accept that there are certain Black men and women and non-binary folks as well who are doing problematic things, because that would have to be accepting that there is wrong in the Black community and that certain stereotypes that the white people have said that we follow are correct. So I think there's this sense of like, we got to beat them and we got to get in front of that and be like, no. Our men in certain instances have done nothing wrong. Our women, like we're almost untouchable. But within that, we are harming other minority groups within the Black community, because there's certain times where we're going to listen to famous Black men and everything they've done and take their word for it instead of listening to a woman who's been sexually assaulted by that man. And a great example that they reference is R. Kelly. We all let that go on too long. I remember being young and listening to that skit about R. Kelly peeing on little girls, and everyone was just like, it's so funny. It's like, clearly we knew. It was like that creepy uncle. We were all aware of it, but we just let it skirt underneath the table until it really came to light and the victim said, I was personally abused by this man. I was taken advantage of. That's when we all had to come out and say like, oh, wow, this was actually really bad, and have to acknowledge it. And now I think he's mostly canceled. I mean, there's a few fans, they still stand for him, but
do you think that
we
only
oh yeah, I'm
I
sorry,
think
go ahead.
you're right.
do you think that we only cancel things when it comes into the forefront of
the white gaze?
White gaze?
I don't think necessarily only then, but I think there's a certain extent where we make passes for certain individuals for certain reasons. And I think part of that has to do with, it's hard enough to have this beautiful image of like a good Black man. So once that is shattered for people, I mean, there's certain people who are like, I will do anything I can in my power to stand for this person so that that doesn't happen, because it gives us hope and faith that we do have strong, good Black men.
But sis, I have a quick question for you though. How do you differentiate? Because I battle with this even for myself. How do you differentiate then after we've canceled you? Do we still honor your body of work that you've done?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Because
do we still honor your body of work? Because there's so many, white men out there that have done things, that have been accused of sexual assault, that have done crazy things, right, that have done crazy things in history, but yet we give them Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductions and give them Grammys and Oscars. So my question is do we still honor the body of work? Does everything after R. Kelly, what he's done, do we disregard him being one of the biggest songwriters of all time? Do we give Bill Cosby, do we say to Bill Cosby, hey, we cancel you totally? I'm not saying these people are right. Let me use that as a disclaimer. But what I'm saying is, do we as a culture still honor their legacy the same way that opposite cultures do when their folks have public mess ups?
I
Just
like,
kind of
I
jump
like
in.
that question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I like that question. I'm not going to give a full answer because like I think Asli probably has a better answer. But we talk about honoring their work while canceling them or acknowledging their faults. I took my son to the MLK Memorial about 3 years ago. One day we were going around DC. I was teaching him about the history, right? And we had a discussion about MLK and the good things he's done and the speeches he's done. I made him read some of his speeches and some of his talks. And then I was like, okay, now do you understand that MLK also was a serial adulterer or purportedly a serial adulterer? Now and I told him the importance of understanding that even good people can do bad things and bad people can also do good things, right? So that's a complex question is what I'm saying.
But you gotta have an answer, big dog. You gotta answer, big dog.
Let me put another
I guess what I said all that to say this, right? Like it's complex. Like you can honor somebody's body of work and call out, hey, R. Kelly likes rape people. Bill Cosby was drugging people and raping them purportedly and went to jail for it. But at the same time, we honor the fact that he was Dr. Huxtable and gave Black people representation on the screen. That doesn't mean
I think, and I will say this, I don't think we are protecting Black girls and Black women. So
we're not.
I think you can, I think you can, yes, I guess acknowledge R. Kelly's body of work, but like in that, who are you protecting all those girls that he raped?
Exactly.
And are you protecting, sorry, Elbi, just quickly. Are you protecting the young people who are looking up to R. Kelly and his body of work and potentially harming other Black girls as a consequence? Like who are you protecting?
Where do we draw the line?
This is a complex question. And like,
go ahead, Craig.
I just wanted to kind of piggyback a little bit on what Rob said, but I think it kind of turns into a 360 on what Raegan and Dwayne said. So I'm gonna put two perspectives on it. One, I don't know that Black folk got the power or control to cancel anybody, period. We don't own enough networks, radio stations, bandwidth, internet frequencies, and streaming and all that new kind of stuff to cancel anybody.
Thank you, sir.
The second thing is when we cancel Bill Cosby with the horrendous stuff that he did, all of the other folk on the Cosby Show in a different world are checklists right now. So when you talk about canceling an R. Kelly, when those BMI checks come in, he's not the only one getting paid off them songs. So when you pull his whole catalog off of the radio, again, not sticking up for what he did, but when you're canceling him, you're canceling everybody in that infrastructure that worked on that body of music. When you quote unquote cancel a Bill Cosby legacy, you're canceling everybody who was dependent on those residuals from the Cosby Show that went on for years along with A Different World. So I think we have to be careful when we start talking about what a cancel culture is and who do we really want to get relinquished or feel the brunt of those repercussions.
I dig that. See, it's a complex issue. And it does boil down to we have to protect Black girls and Black women with the X, because I'm going to put it out there, trans women are disappearing and dying left and right. There's not even hashtags going out for them. So let's put that out there straight up. So we definitely have to like keep an eye on like observing. You can cancel Bill Cosby and not the Cosby Show because other people rely on these checks. That's a valid point. And we also need to make sure that we are doing what we need to do to protect our Black girls and our Black women, because as bad as I have it as a Black man, I mean, I'm fortunate. I'm very fortunate in education and income and all the things.
Brad, keep going.
But what I'm saying is, like, no matter how fortunate I am, and no matter what struggles I still have, Black women have it worse. And we say that as Black, we don't generally say that as Black men, but we have to recognize it. Black women, like, poof, rock, meet, hard place. It is real. And I see it in all the Black women in my life, the trans women, so that's women with an X, the trans women I know, yeah, it's bad. So we gotta do both. We gotta protect our girls and our women, and we have to make sure we're doing it.
How do we as a Black community become better allies for our LGBTQ plus brothers and sisters?
We cut we cut that transphobic, homophobic crap. We gotta cut that. Like, we're marginalized, they're marginalized. How can we be mad at another marginalized group, right?
It's so crazy how deep rooted it is in the Black community too.
It's complete, and it's ridiculous. And honestly, I before I became woke, I guess, but when I was doing a lot of work on myself, you know, like, you use the word that's gay or whatever in a pejorative fashion. And it wasn't until like Macklemore's Same Love when he dropped a line and it says, we drop man that's gay on a daily, but like, it's jacked up because we're making gay synonymous with the lesser, right? And that's just wrong, right? If we are oppressed, how are we going to oppress other people who are also oppressed, right?
I think we need to do, Elbi, and I'll say this, is hold each other accountable, because I think we give each other a lot of passes.
Yes.
And one thing I will say, like, when I was single, one thing I said I would do is I would never date a man who was homophobic. And that was really important to me because I had dated a man who was homophobic, and I realized, why was I giving him a pass if I wasn't? And that was a conscious choice that I made. And I think we have to hold each other accountable, because we let things go, we let things slide, we let little comments come out.
Just a joke.
We don't address them.
Yeah, we definitely do. I apologize for the curses and the half curses.
We're canceling you. We're canceling you. No, bro. You know what? I think too, as a Black man, you know, I mean, there's so many systematic ideas of what we are supposed to be. And I mean, the truth of the matter is, as frustrated as we get in this new generation, because we want to be forward, we want to be conscious, we want to be environmentally healthy, safe, we still have to give, though, a level, I think, in length of a bridge to be there for Black men who for decades, for centuries, for years, were whipped and beaten and told, you have to be manly, you have to be strong, you have to, you know, be able to provide for your family, that don't understand everything. I'm not saying that it's acceptable, but I'm just saying that we have to be able to give everyone a pass in the sense of being able to build that bridge to understanding and moving forward. And then my last point about this also is that I think when we're honoring issues and we're honoring oppression, we have to make sure that we honor across the board and we recognize the different oppressive systems that are built for others, but we also don't try to lump them together, because we do a disservice for our LGBT family when we put them to say they're the same oppression as Black people in that movement, or Black Lives Matter is the same thing as trans, queer, you know, or queer people. It just gets flustered. So I think as Black people, we have to honor, yes, there are other people who've been oppressed, but let's not take the focus while we're fighting on police brutality to not honor that moment with what that means. You know, let's make sure we find that balance as Black people.
What I think ultimately is that we love to categorize ourselves and separate ourselves within the Black community. That's why we have colorism. That's why we have classism. That's why we have, the lesser and the more. And I think ultimately, when we're talking about the Black community and the LGBTQ plus community, we have to remember that they are still our Black brothers and our Black sisters, however they want to identify themselves, and that we should commune with them because they are us, and we are already dealing with so much oppression. Why wouldn't we collectively, heal with one another and collectively, and build with one another? The other thing that I want to talk about, which is probably going to be an unpopular opinion, is the fear against the LGBTQ plus community. Because as a parent, I'm a single mother, but as a parent, I could recognize when my little sister, who's 16 years my junior, when she came out as you know, a lesbian, when she said, you know, this is how I want to identify myself, I had a fear because I felt like, oh my God, this young woman is going to be ostracized. This young woman is going to be targeted. This young woman is going to be, you know, on job applications, she's not going to look like her identified gender, so they're going to discriminate against her. I want to protect her, right? And so I think sometimes fear can come off as, and I'm not giving anybody any itty passes, but what I'm saying is sometimes I think fear can come off as anger or discrimination. And how do we combat that as a community to get rid of the fear in the community that you can be all of these different things and it doesn't take away from the shiny, beautiful image of the Black community?
Can I start this off a little bit? I've been kind of quiet here. Like you said, like, you know, Representative Craig Gordon said that we are very forgiving. I agree with him, but we're not forgiving when it comes to our own. And I believe that we more like was said earlier, we reject our own more so than anyone else. When it comes to the Black, that's LGBTQ, and it comes to heterosexual, understand that person. Sometimes the confusion can be that LGBTQ person is putting them being Black, the LGBTQ agenda ahead of the Black agenda. And I believe that that's where that confusion, that friction comes in that. And I believe that in order for us to really be progressive and move forward as one, is that misunderstanding, that concession gets aired out, if I'm making sense.
Yeah, and Darnell, to your point, D, like, let's also recognize that we're able to have this conversation because of where we live in America, and this is an issue. Like, I have so many African friends. I love my African friends, my Igbo kings and queens, Nigerian kings and queens. And one thing that they tell me is that we take so many liberties for issues that we even fight openly here in public. Like, you go to other countries or, you know, third world countries, they're not even talking about LGBTQ plus rights because it's obsolete. Like, it's just understood that's not what you're supposed to be or what you're supposed to become. So I think, you know, even us having this conversation, we have to start acknowledging spaces before we start breaking down. Let's acknowledge the things that we have going for us. Yes, thank you. Yes, acknowledge us just being able to have this conversation.
I think, and coming from Tanzania, which it's illegal to be gay in Tanzania. Right. Yeah. And I'm a queer person. I identify as bisexual and pansexual. And there's no question that if I came out in Tanzania, it would not be the same thing as me coming out here. Specifically, too, being in Savannah, Georgia, that's such a liberal blue dot in a red state. And just the very fact that I've lived in both worlds and I've experienced both worlds, I think while, yes, we should acknowledge the privilege to be openly queer and openly having these conversations, I don't want to stop there because I'm fighting twice as hard. I'm fighting for myself and I'm fighting for myself here and there. And the fact that I can even have the conversation here shouldn't never been a question. Like, to say that, hey, at least we got to talk about it openly, we should be happy about that. I think we need to go and then some. Because with every cause, if we just take the small hand that feeds us and we're like, I'll take this inch, that's good enough, we're never going to get anywhere. So I'm like, I will say it loud and proud that I'm queer, and then go even further that we need to have the tough conversations about what it's like to live as a queer person and the way that they're ostracized within their own communities that they try and find comfort in. I mean, I remember hearing all kinds of homophobic language and jokes and commentary from my own family. And within the, first of all, Tanzanian community, I was raised Muslim. I was raised both in America and Tanzania, and just all the ways that we accept all these little microaggressions and all these little comments they really etch at a person and they really tear apart a person's mental health. It's one thing to be Black. It's one thing to be a woman. It's one thing to be an immigrant. And then you put queer on top of it. I mean, you're just sitting there like, this world wasn't made for me.
So what's your first step for education when you're educating people and you want them to understand, or you know, because you're on a panel now, is 4 or 5, you know, Black men, even with the ratio, like, how do you educate our community from your perspective, man, on how we move forward?
I think, listen.
I'm sorry, LB. I don't want to ask a quick. I know you know this is your, yeah.
No, Robert, go ahead.
Yeah.
No, just I appreciate you. Go ahead.
A big step is just listening. I think we have a really bad habit, and Raegan, you touched on this a lot, where we just silence certain voices within our own communities. We're like, listen, this Black man said it, that is the truth. And God forbid a woman comes and challenges that point of view. It's like, you're trying to harp all over him. You're always trying to tear apart Black men. It's like, just listen. This sister has a point. And the same when it comes to our LGBT plus folks, like, we are out here saying exactly what we need sometimes. So I think it's just tap in and listen to that. When a trans person says, our own people, a lot of Black men maybe, are out here killing trans women, listen to that. And when they say, we need you to do certain things, we need you to do these specific things to stop that from happening, do it. And I think, again, going back to the point of people think it's this big life-changing movement, you know, you have to go out there protesting and fighting. Sometimes it's as simple as sitting down and telling your father, like, no, you cannot say that. We don't call trans people transvestites. We don't say that, you know, that's a he, she, or they're dressing from the opposite sex and they must have some type of mental health issue. Like, something as small as that makes such an impact. You never know who you're in the room with. And even if you aren't in the room with that person, there's such an impact in shutting that down and saying, no, that is not okay. Because I think if at least one adult person, when I had heard some of these commentaries when I was younger, had shut that down, it's so nice to know that, hey, I have at least somewhat of a safe space within this community. I have someone who's looking out for me.
Yeah, I like that.
Let me say something real quick. Just a quick question. So do you think the main reason people think that way is because they're closed-minded and they need to be open-minded? You think that's the number one key?
I think that's part of it. I mean, I love my grandma to death, but she is homophobic as they come. And so much of it comes from ignorance, because she's told me stories where she fears that, you know, she lived in London for a long time with my uncle and my dad and my other uncle. And she would have a hairdresser who she said was very feminine and flamboyant, who he would come in and do her son's hairs. And she would always say the same thing. You can tout all day, we can kiki, we can talk, but if you look at my son sideways, that's it. So this idea that, like, oh, you're a gay man, therefore you're in love with every man and you're a pedophile. It's this ignorance we have and this stereotype that we cannot break. And it's not like it's new to us. We understand the concept of stereotyping. We know what it feels like for people to be ignorant about what it is like to be Black. So it's like, just apply that same logic and theory to these other minority groups, to being a woman.
I dig it.
It's so funny to me because I always wonder if it's this, I don't know if it's just a human thing that we do, where if someone is oppressing us, we feel like we need to oppress someone else to make ourselves feel bigger or better or stronger. And it's just like, how do we get out of that? Yeah,
that's a good question. But I want to answer your question, Elbi, but I also want to take it back a few steps, because this is something that's real important about my man Rob, something you said where you were like, you know, at least we can talk freely about this in this country where there's other countries that you can't. And that is very true, and that's valid, and we should be fortunate for that. But that is the exact same logic that was used when Kaepernick was taking a knee, and they were like, at least you get the chance to protest in this country because it's a free country. That's the exact same logic. There's no difference in the logic used to get to that point. So
yeah, and let me differentiate what I was trying to say, Dwayne, is not to belittle the fact that we need to have this conversation, but the point I was trying to make was to understand that you are in a space where you don't even understand, even in your idea of deepest oppression, there are still people that are lower than you. And so that's the point that I wanted to raise, that I think a lot of people ignore. It's like, there are levels to oppression. And that is why it is my personal belief that we have to honor, although we can look at oppression as this big scope and we see these different issues, we can honor them as one, but we do a disservice to all these different communities that are oppressed if we don't acknowledge them singly. Head on, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. My next point was to answer Elbi's question and talk a little bit about the question of how do we make these changes, and like was said earlier, like you started in your own bubble. Like tell your brother, your cousin, your uncle, yeah, that's not okay. That ain't it. I just had to tell my brother the other day. I was posting pictures of my work socks, and I had some work socks with pink zigzags. He comes in my inbox saying, "Oh, those socks are gay, but your other socks are fire." I'm like, hold up. First off, like, don't come at me like that. And he was like, "Oh, I'm just joking." I was like, "Nope, we don't joke like that." And he left it at that, right? You got to squash that where it belongs. Again, action starts where you're at.
Right. I'm just saying.
Okay, Raegan, hold on. Let Raegan finish her point.
Okay.
I know you're trying to wrap up. I know. Everybody know. Raegan, go ahead.
Who are listening, and maybe you guys here too. Look and see who's in your circle of influence, who's in your immediate circle. If you have no one in your life that's a part of that community, you should question why that is. You should really question why that is. And I think something that I find especially frustrating is that as Black people, straight Black people, we want people to understand and acknowledge our lived experience, right? We're always saying, like, believe my lived experience. I'm telling you what my lived experience is. But when the LGBTQ community is telling us what their lived experience is, we're doing the same things. We're saying we don't believe your lived experience. And that's a problem. And I think as us, we should recognize that's a problem because it's happening to us. So believe lived experience and check and see who's in your circle.
All right, Darnell, you can go ahead and wrap us up.
I apologize, ladies and gentlemen, and we thank you all for coming here and sharing your thoughts, your opinions, and what you do for a living. We're going to do some closing remarks, and anything you'd like to say to the fellow millennials and also the audience that's listening. What do you advise and what do you recommend? And what would you like to see as a millennial to close those gaps and to help our African-American community progress? And let's start with Mr. James Bennet. If he's still here, I know he has to go.
Yeah. So a little bit about, I'm Jamaican. I was raised in a culture where it was never okay. It was a lot of homophobia. Until I came to the United States, I literally had to realize that, a lot of inclusiveness was needed for you to understand each other. And until I actually learned to let go of a lot of things and be myself, then I start including everybody around me. And I have friends that are gay or straight or trans, and it's amazing. And trust me, and it's so much fun to embrace different people, and especially in the Black community. So what you're saying, Raegan, is absolutely amazing. And coming from a culture from where I'm from in Jamaica, it's a whole different ballgame. And we need to move together as actually a people when we're doing everything as to and not leaving anybody out when we're building wealth. And I'm big on that. So let's keep doing what we're doing. And Dwayne, I love the fire you, brother. Craig, the legislative part, keep doing that. All you great young ladies that are actually yourselves, but have great backgrounds from these universities, and you express yourselves. Never lose sight of who you are, because I'm telling you, when I found out that I could actually be a voice and not care about what anybody thinks about me, it opened up a whole different world for me, and I stopped worrying about what people think. Be you, and other people gravitate to you, and they will change because of who you are. That's what I had to leave.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Bennet. And sir, God bless you and wish you the best with your business.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. Now we're going to move that on to Mr. Marcello Page out there in Liberty County, sir.
So my remarks before you close everything, I want to highlight that people in the community to come together is very important, especially holding your elected leaders accountable. You know, some people get complacent. They get used to letting these people come in, sitting there on the boards for several years, not making a change, and they're not making any policies or any laws that's going to benefit them. So, you know, voting is very important as well. So if you really want change, you know, listen to the candidate that, you know, fits you best, you know, elect them in, hold them accountable, and make sure they're making policies that's going to make a change in the community on a local level, you know, state, federal, because that's a key part of actually making change. So that's all I have to say.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Page. Thank you for your participation and you being here with us this evening, sir. Thank you so much. At this time, we go with the fireball, Mr. Dwayne Smith.
Yeah, I'm fired. I'm fired up because I'm tired.
Good.
I'm tired. I'm tired. Freaking Tupac said, "I'm tired of being poor and even worse, I'm Black." I'm just tired in general. So only thing I have to say is that if you want change, if we want change, then we need to go and make that change. We need to go and get that change. And like Mr. Marcello said, go out and vote every election. Go out and engage with your elected officials. Tell them, like, if you don't do what we want you to do, we're going to vote you out. You're not going to have a job. It's not, we don't have to trust them. We don't have to like worry about who's for us. We have to tell them and organize and make them work for us because that's their dang on job. And that's all I got. Organize, vote, hold your elected officials accountable every time.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Thank you. At this time, we have Ms. Henderson.
I think a lot of really good points have been made, and I'll just say something that maybe comes from Howard, or I don't know where it comes from. But one thing is, I think everyone should, if they can, take the opportunity to reflect and honor and acknowledge your ancestors for everything that they have given you, and to really understand the history of your ancestors. And so I'm going to leave it at that. But that is something, especially today on Juneteenth, I hope you take a moment to reflect on your ancestors.
Thank you so much, ma'am. At this time, Mr. Robert.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. This has been amazing. Like, this was better than anything I could have done today on Juneteenth. I want to thank the Culturist Union again. Thank you. Thank you guys for the work that you do. I think sometimes we are so frustrated with our environment that we don't honor the blessings that are amongst us. So thank you for the work that you do day in and day out. And so I just want to encourage everybody that is out there to understand that there are big issues. There are things that are in your life that make you seem like where you want to go is not possible, that who you are as a Black person, it won't be attained because of an oppressive system. But even in oppression, there is still a light. And in that light is your opportunity to shine the brightest that you're going to shine. So honor that, hone into that, and then be the change that you want to see on a daily basis. It's not just a thing that's written on Instagram or hashtag. Take the hashtag off of just living online and start living the real, doing the real work inside and out. Start owning your own stuff. Start creating your own stuff. All the creatives who are listening right now, as a fellow creative, if you're not creative during this time, if you're not creating product, creating ideas, creating mechanisms, creating business, then you are losing. You are a part of the oppression that keeps us down. Make a decision today that you are going to start creating and find your market. And last but not least, I just want to encourage everybody that's on here. I am my own business as well. And I've written a book called The Intern Guru, 5 Strategies to Unleash the Warrior and Own the Boss in You. And so I walk you through these steps on how to break down the idea to tap into your greatness. No matter the situation, there's always going to be problems around you. How do you own who you are to boss up every day? So I'll make sure I drop that in the comments as well. But thank y'all again. Thank you, Elbi. Thank you, Darnell. I appreciate y'all. And we got to keep having these conversations. That's the only way we move forward, fam.
God bless you, sir. Greatly do appreciate you. And also, I should have mentioned that before. If you have a business that you like to talk about, put out there. Also in the comments, drop your tags, your emails, your contact information. At this time, we also have Miss Asli. Hope I'm saying that correct.
Asli, you're good. You're good. I just want to say and get back to the point of intersectionality and how important it is, because at the end of the day, yes, we may be all Black, but Black is not a monolith. We've all got our own struggles as well and own levels of oppression and oppression within the Black community. And I say this not to bring down the Black community, but to say that, hey, if we're going to go through it together, we got to go through it together. If Black lives matter, all Black lives matter. So we don't stop at just, oh, we good now, our Black men are not being shot. We got to make sure our women are taken care of. Okay, our non-binary folks are taken care of. Our children are taken care of. Our disabled folks are taken care of. Our trans women and men are taken care of. So the fight doesn't stop for me here. It has never been just about certain Black folks. It's always been about everybody. And I'm not free until everybody's free. So I really hope that we bring that into this sweeping level of change and community organizing. And we're not just looking as like, well, I'm going to take care of me and my struggles. We got to make sure to look out for everyone, because at the end of the day, all these things intersect. We don't have Black liberation until we have Black women liberation. We don't have freedom until our trans women are not being killed in the streets. So let's wake up to that and let's all work together to get through this, because at the end of the day, the enemy should be white supremacy. That's that on that.
Thank you. Drop the mic. Thank you so much, ma'am. We appreciate you. Last but not least, Representative J. Craig Gordon. Sir.
Well, first of all, guys, I just want to thank y'all for holding this forum, and I apologize for some housekeeping I didn't do in the beginning of the conversation. I didn't realize we had so many veterans out there, so thank y'all for your service. Doesn't go unnoticed. I think everybody touched on something that was pivotal, and I don't want to recreate the wheel. What I will say is that you can't legislate tolerance, and you can't legislate solidarity. And so my closing message would be to parents, white parents, teach your children some goddamn solidarity and some goddamn tolerance. Black parents, do the same thing as it relates to members of the LGBTQ plus community as well. Because what I found is that hate is generational and is taught consciously and subconsciously. Kids emulate what they see. And when they see their kids saying the N-word, and when they see, when they see their parents saying the N-word, then it becomes comfortable and it becomes a part of their inner culture, and it grows like a cyst. And the same thing as it relates to, the LGBTQ community. So those are my closing words. It starts with parents. My new favorite phrase from American Gods, Mr. Nancy, is angry is good, but use it for good.
All right. As the residents of the 163, I personally like to thank you, sir, for representing us well, and also for coming here to this roundtable with the millennials and sharing your thoughts and your expressions and your concerns, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, brother.
Very much. And before I hand over to Elbi, I'll say that I would like to see more roundtables like this. I would like to see policymakers and people that represent us, like Representative J. Craig Gordon. I would like to see the Black community come together for real. I mean, a protest is one thing, but we also have to go after what's in black and white, what's offered to us, what's been passed, and what's in the making to be passed. And happy Juneteenth. Juneteenth, and I like to challenge all the millennials. Let's get out there, let's be a part of the fight, and let's lead the fight. That's all I have. God bless you guys. Appreciate you all for joining us. I miss Elbi Elm.
All right, you guys. When I thought this up in my head, it didn't even touch what happened tonight. So I just want to thank each and every single one of you for taking the time to share your voice and speak to the people. I really do appreciate it. I know that you guys are busy. I know that you guys have other things to do, but you came here and you showed out, and I couldn't be more grateful. To our viewers, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for your messages. I didn't even have to read any of the questions because we already covered everything. So it was brilliant, and I couldn't be more happy. Happy Juneteenth. Happy Juneteenth. Like straight up and down. I appreciate all of y'all. I don't have anything else to say. I would just be beating the wheel. please, 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 to our speakers, drop your organizations in the comments.
Yes,
Drop your books. I know Dwayne is writing a couple books. Robert got a couple books. I know Jay Gordon got a couple things going in the works. I know Marcello got a couple things going in the works. Drop your stuff. Raegan, I know that you were talking about a program earlier. Drop it in the comments because it's